Hello, I'm Cod Director Paul Ferrace, and today we're checking the Cod's dictionary. Yes, we too, Ryan, have a dictionary. I'm looking up the definition of the word garbage, and according to the dictionary, garbage is refuse or any food scraps or other things that are unnecessary, unneeded, and worthy of removal. So, yes, garbage. Everybody produces garbage, including the crew of the USS Cod aboard a submarine. And getting rid of that garbage is important. Certainly we understand how important garbage is, garbage removal in our own communities. In fact, I remember as a boy, a typical family might have 1 or 2 trash cans out on the curb on garbage night. Today, I don't think anybody gets away with less than 4 or 5 for a family. We certainly produce a lot of garbage. In World War II, the typical fleet submarine at sea on a war patrol produced garbage, but it could be divided into 2 basic types: food scraps and paperwork from the officers. But right now, let's talk about the main content of our garbage stream, and that was food scraps. That had to be gotten rid of, and it would be collected at the scullery, and they didn't have the hefty cinch sack or the plastic trash can liners we enjoy today. Burlap bags were the liner of choice for the garbage cans. Food scraps went into that burlap, and of course burlap is biodegradable, but it was cheap and it didn't float. So the scullery crew would be scraping the food things. We're going to demonstrate that in a minute. And then, of course, it would be combined with any paperwork, of course, not classified things, but the general paperwork that might be produced, along with any other scraps, and particularly something heavy that would weight the bag. And at night, when the boat was, of course, on the surface, it would be brought up through the conning tower and thrown overboard. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about the scullery trash. Well, here I am, and even though I'm the skipper here, for the time being, I'm a non-qual. So in addition to my regular duties, I've got scullery work to do. So I've got some dirty dishes. Well, let's pretend they're dirty. And they've got food scraps. Now, before I wash the dishes, I've got to get rid of the food scraps. And I think this was Ben's plate. I can tell because he uses incredible amounts of ketchup and leaves it on the plate. Well, I'm going to have to scrape the food off. So the Electric Boat Company has a wonderful galvanized garbage can, which we don't have. But we have a cardboard analog, and that is it for now. We're working on reproducing one from Blueprints. Rich McElney from the Pampanito, of course, has been very helpful. And they're way ahead of us. They produced a galvanized trash can to the Portsmouth plans, and they have that aboard Pampanito. Now, being Electric Boat, we're slightly different. I don't think our can would be the same as theirs. We've got the blueprints. Ben, our curator, discovered those, looked them up, and we'll get working on reproducing one. But for now, we've got some cardboard. The important thing is that the originals were galvanized. And in the humid, hot environment of a submarine, George Sacco, one of our cook who was on all 7 patrols, told me that the galvanized cans rotted through after 1 or 2 patrols. It was a big problem. The garbage can would collapse. It was just corroded. Galvanization didn't do the job. So he took a rotted can over to the subtender and asked to have them remake one in stainless steel. And of course they threw him out of the shop saying, hey, we've got a war to fight. we can't be bothering with your silly garbage can. Well, he came back to the boat rather crestfallen, and our engineering officer, Frank Kimball, said, "How did it go?" And he said, "It didn't go. They threw me out." And he said, "Well, how much coffee did you bring over there?" And George Sacco said, "I didn't bring any coffee." He said, "What did you expect?" He said, "Get a 5-pound can of coffee and bring it over there." Well, George did that, and an hour later went back aboard the tender and went to the same guy in the shop, and he saw the coffee, saw the can, said, "Put it down. We'll have it to you sometime tomorrow." So there's the key to getting things done in the Navy. All right, so eventually we're going to rebuild one from stainless steel so we can preserve that story from George. But for now, we have wonderful cardboard. So I've got this plate. I've got a bunch of plates full of food scraps. So you're going to scrape them into the burlap bag. Oh, that's pretty gross. And then I'm going to do the washing of the dishes. That's more, again, more food scraps into this, and be prepared to wash the dishes. If it's not quite full, and let's face it, these boys ate good, but they ate all they wanted, but they could take all they want, but they had to eat all they took. So there wasn't a whole lot of food scraps left over, maybe some bones and things. So it isn't quite full. So I'm going to put it back in this wonderful cabinet right here. It even has a lock on it, so nobody can steal the garbage. And then we'll secure that for now, and then for the next meal we'll have more food scraps. So let's say we've had our breakfast, we've had then dinner, and then in the evening we had our supper. So we've got that all scraped away, and now we're surfaced, it's nighttime, and that's starting to smell a little bad. And given the overall environment of a submarine, you know, you don't want the added stench of garbage to make things worse. So again, I'm going to be a lowly non-qual, so I'm going to no, I think I'm going to have Ben do that, because he's pretty much a lowly non-qual. But let's just say I'm higher rank, and I'm going to say, okay, let's get ready to throw the trash overboard. So I'm going to pull that, and it's almost full, but I know that the paper work in the yeoman shack, that's he's probably generated some trash. So I'm going to go over there, and I might just call ahead on the sound-powered phone and ask the steward's mates to collect the waste out of the officers' waste cans. So let's just say I did that. And that's going to be Ben. So Ben, bring some trash in from the officers' quarters, the staterooms. I'm yelling to Ben because he's 2 compartments ahead, but he's actually right here. So come on in here, Ben. Wave to the camera.
Hello.
You say hi to Mom. Anyway, so add the paperwork trash. Oh, he's doing that very well. Hey, that's an artifact. Okay, and you didn't clean it all out. Okay, so now our trash has the food scraps and the paperwork of the day. Okay, so we're gonna take that out and get it ready. But first, I want to talk about the trash container you're holding, Ben. And I wasn't kidding. That's an artifact. So let's talk about World War II submarine officer stateroom trash cans. Now, you know how small the staterooms are. They're very small, so you don't want to have a big circular or even a rectangular can like we have under here. You want something that's going to hug the bulkhead. So here you are. This is the Electric Boat trash can made out of stainless steel, and it has 2 small tabs right here and here, and they fit into little clips mounted on the bulkhead. Now, when we got custody of Cod years ago, a lot of these fine appointments were missing. We just had these mysterious little clips, and we didn't frankly know what went on them. And it wasn't until 1996 at in conjunction with a HINSA conference, we were invited to tour the USS Miami. in New London. And of course, we were very honored to be invited to the captain's stateroom and meet the captain. I shook his hand, and I noticed on the bulkhead down low was one of these things. And I said, "What is that?" And he said, "That's my waste can." I said, "How does it mount to the bulkhead?" And he said, "There's two little clips." And I said, "May I see them?" And he said, "Well, let me look at the trash." He said, "No, there's nothing classified." So he pulled it off and, of course, turned it around. And I said to my director, Dr. John Fakin, he was our director of the Cod at the time, I said, "John, these look like they would fit into those mysterious little clips." And we didn't carry a tape measure with us, but business cards. We took business cards, and it was 2 1/4 business cards between these two, and we did a rub trace of the clip. And of course, the skipper of the Miami looked at us like we were insane, but we tried to explain to him that this was a great revelation for us. Anyway, when we got back home, I contacted our friends at the Navy History and Heritage Command, the curator branch, and I said to one Frank Thompson, "Hey Frank," I said, "where can we get some trash cans from a decommissioned boat?" And he said, "Paul, we have so many important things to do." I said, "Frank, please, this is very important to us." So they were always very supportive. So he put me in touch with the supply officer of 2 electric boat subs, the New York City and the Albuquerque, that had been placed out of commission, were basically being prepared for scrap. And I got the guy's phone number and I called. This is actually before the internet. And I said, "Hey, I've got the weirdest request you probably have heard all week." I said, "Is it possible to get 10 of your trash cans?" And the supply officer said, "That's the weirdest request I've had all year." But I did some explaining to him, and Frank had apparently called ahead and said, "You're going to get a call from a weird guy from the USS Cod, play ball with him." So suffice to say, a month or so later, we got a crate. I opened it up, and there were about a dozen of these things, and we just went into each stateroom and dropped them in all those little clips. They fit perfectly, and that was probably one of the easiest restoration projects we've ever done. Now, how is it that we knew the clips and the things? Actually, we discovered on board subs that were built at Portsmouth or Newport News. They have an identical can, but their tabs are wider and closer together, so they wouldn't fit. So we had to find a boat that came out of Electric Boat, and they were identical to the World War II ones. In fact, this could be a great conspiracy that I have identified. I think Electric Boat made these by the thousands in World War II, probably for $5 a piece, and had them in a warehouse. And then 20, 30 years after the war, when they're building nuclear submarines, they keep the design and they just keep dropping them in, probably at $500 a copy. But I noticed something on this one. So we got our trash cans apparently from the New York City and the Albuquerque, but this one is marked SSN 660. And what boat is that? That's Sandlance, isn't it? We looked at it. Sandlance. So Sandlance is a 637 class. So, you know, that, again, so we know that these things were also fitted out on the 637 class boats. So there is, you know, pretty much your officer's ward room, stateroom trash cans, 80 years and still going. I wonder if the late Los Angeles class boats or the New Virginia class boats, if they're still using these. So, okay, so I'm going to give that back to you. Put that back in the officer's stateroom that you got that from. And we're going to take the garbage topside. So we'll join you, you'll join us in the conning tower next. Now, I am the helmsman. I'm steering the boat, and it's nighttime. So I better keep an eye on my gyro compass repeater. By the way, some of you have just recently joined us. We have a catalog of at least 55 programs. I invite you to go back, check some of those early ones out. We've got a lot of interesting topics we've covered, but that's a plug. Let's get back to our story of garbage. So here I am, I'm steering the boat because we're on the surface as we always are at nighttime, and our lowly non-qual, also known as Ben the Curator, is going to be dragging up the stinking, drippy, full bag of burlap garbage. So I'm steering, and here comes Ben the non-qual. And of course, you're going to ask permission to go topside.
Permission to go topside.
Well, hold on. Come on up here. Bring that garbage. Maintain course 210. You're not going topside, right? Because I now am Cod crewman Gene Leonard of Poverty Acres. Gene Leonard often had, keep an eye, well, I don't know, you can't see where we're going. Gene Leonard was often on the helm at night by design. When the garbage would come up, he would tell the guy, leave it right here, I'll throw it overboard in a minute, and you don't have to carry that stinky garbage. And the non-quals were very happy to hear that. Now, why Gene did that, he wasn't such a, quote, guy, you know, wanted to keep the poor non-quals from having the smell. He was a consummate souvenir and curator for the Cod. Gene would go through the garbage, particularly the paperwork, and find some stuff in there that actually we preserve today as important history. Primarily, the really good stuff are the unredacted patrol reports. The pencil, and sometimes one of the original flimsies that later had certain names blacked out. So he saved that. He got some other stuff that he preserved. Then he would throw it overboard. So is there anything good in this? No, there's nothing, just food scraps. So, hey, throw that up there and overboard. I'll take the helm. And yeah, by the way, you just went 3 degrees off course. So throw that overboard, and is it weighted enough? You think it's gonna?
Yes.
I hope so. Okay, well, you head out, okay, up topside. Now, trash was thrown overboard. It had to be weighted. You didn't want to have it float because very often Japanese trawlers and things would find trash floating, and they would go through it and sometimes find some intelligence, like at least the name of a submarine that might be operating in the area. And of course, Tokyo Rose made good use of that for you know, propaganda purposes. But so you would throw the garbage over by burlap bag, because these are really surface ships that are on the surface virtually all the time, most of the time. Now, in the 50s, boats now have snorkels. They're operating underwater. They want to remain submerged. They want to remain unseen. So you can't surface to throw your garbage out. You're not going to want to put it into a torpedo tube and shoot it out, because it's going to float if you're not careful. So when the fleet boats are guppyized, they introduce something called the GDU, the Garbage Disposal Unit. And it's a large, well, it's a downward firing torpedo tube, miniature torpedo tube. It's bigger than the flare ejectors, considerably bigger, but not quite as big as a torpedo tube. And they're generally located either in the starboard side, aft end of the control room, or just outside the galley, just forward of the scullery. So you had to carve out some space for that. Now, what would happen is you would put a, basically, you had a folded flat metal can. You had a specific weight made for the GDU. So you'd put the can liner in this thing with the weight, and your trash was compacted into this big can inside the GDU. And when it was full, the lid went on, and you would eject it down. It's weighted into the bottom of the ocean, so there was no indication that you had dropped your garbage. Now, that is not something we have on cod. It's something you'll find on croaker and cavalla, raquin, torsk. Who else is going to have them? Clamagore, but she's gone. So it's a Cold War thing. So if any of you sailors out there, submariners, have experience with GDUs and some of the things that might have been a problem you had to watch out for, please comment on the comment section. Tell us your story of the GDU. Tell us what you couldn't put in there. Let us know, because it all helps history. So that's the story of garbage, and I think it's a very important one. And it's smelling bad in here, so let's get this garbage out of here. Remember to hit the like button, hit the subscription button, notification bell, so that you'll be aware of when we upload again. And thank you for joining us for garbage.